bring us into a moment of meditation or contemplation or just thinking about these words, I'm going to read to you, "It Matters What We Believe," from Sophia Lyon-Fahs, who you've heard me mention is the mother of religious education, who was ordained at age 81 or 82, and on whose curriculum many of us grew up. You'll hear a little bit more about her today. "Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged. Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies. Some beliefs are divisive, separating the saved from the unsaved, friends from enemies. Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where sincere differences beautify the pattern. Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world. Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling ever growing with the upward thrust of life." I would say that we give thanks for what we are taught here when we're young and what we strive to hold on to as we get older. Beliefs that are inclusive and compassionate. We give thanks for the ability to be flexible and spontaneous and forgiving of things when they don't go exactly as planned. Because we know that our lives don't go exactly as planned either. So let me double check to see where we are here, because I think it's time for the message. To imagine, to dream, to create, and redeem. Those were the words we sang this morning with Olivia. For the sake of the living, let us be drawn in. Let us be drawn into a place where others are also drawn in. drawn into a community that fully embodies the deepest beliefs, principles, and values of our religiously liberal faith. What does it mean to embody something? What would it look like to be a community of embodiment? Sometimes we talk about embodying stress. That might be present today. We probably talk a lot about that these days. You can also be the embodiment of peace, of virtue, of happiness. One definition is to give concrete form, to express, personify, or exemplify in concrete form. When we embody something, we might say we feel it in our bones. It is to hold and understand a belief or an idea so deeply that it is expressed through our very life. It becomes visible, even tangible to others. Our goal as a community of embodiment is to act in concert with or in ways that express, symbolize, or convey our most deeply held beliefs or highest principles. As individuals, we may hold different beliefs, even different principles. As a Unitarian Universalist faith community, however, we hold certain principles in common because that is our covenant. And it's written in your hymnal and you can find it online. In order for us to embody the beliefs or principles of our Unitarian Universalist faith, we first need to know how this faith came about. We need to understand it a little bit and know what it stands for. Newcomers might learn a little bit about this in the new UU class. However, as I have come to know, hearing things once or twice or even over and over and over again in sermons is not enough for these ideas or principles to become so deeply ingrained a part of us that they are reflected always in our every action, word, or deed. To be a community of embodiment is to so truly understand our faith that we make choices in our everyday lives that are an expression of what we believe and that they reflect our faith. It's a lifelong effort. And if you get it 70 or 80% right, you're doing good, I'm sure. So first, a little history about Unitarian Universalism and how we have developed. Although over the years I've said in numerous ways and delivered sermons on just about everything I'm going to say, and just about everything I'm going to say I've delivered a whole sermon on. So rather than use all of my own words, which tend to be a lot of words, I am choosing to borrow from the concise writing of Mark Harris. For some of you, it might be a review, and for others, you may feel inundated with too much too fast. If so, just let it wash over you. I'm sure you'll take what you need for now. I start with the word heretic, because even though it has been used to describe us in a derogatory way, heresy in Greek means choice, and we are a people of choice. During the first 3 centuries of Christian church, believers could choose from a variety of tenets about Jesus. Among these, there was the belief that Jesus was an entity sent by God on a divine mission. God being one entity and Jesus another. Thus, the word Unitarian developed, meaning the oneness of God, rather than the Trinity or the threeness of God. Another religious choice in the first 3 centuries of the Common Era was universal salvation. This was the belief that no person would be condemned by God to eternal damnation in a fiery pit. Thus, a universalist believed that all people will be saved. Christianity lost its element of choice in 325 of the Common Era when the Nicene Creed established the Trinity as dogma. For centuries thereafter, people who professed Unitarian or Universalist beliefs were persecuted. This was true until the 16th century, when the Protestant Reformation took hold in the remote mountains of Transylvania in Eastern Europe. Here, the first edict of religious toleration was declared in 1568 during the reign of the first and only Unitarian king, John Sigismund. Have you all heard of him? We used to teach a song in religious education. I'm not a singer, but you need to hear this. See, I'm already getting wordy, so we're going to run over, but... King John Sigismund was a Transylvanian, the only king to be a Unitarian. From his throne he did declarian, people could be either Roman or Arian. From my RE teaching days. Yeah. His court preacher, Francis David, had successfully converted from Catholicism to Lutheranism to Calvinism and finally to Unitarianism because he could find no biblical basis for the doctrine of the Trinity, arguing that people should be allowed to choose among those faiths. He is the one that we quote as having said, "We need not think alike to love alike." In 16th century Transylvania, Unitarian congregations were established for the first time in history, and these churches continue to preach, even now, the Unitarian message in present-day Romania. Like their heretic forebears from ancient lands, these liberals could not see how the deification of a human being or the simple recitation of creeds could help them to live better lives. They said, we must follow Jesus, not worship him. During the 16th and 17th centuries, Unitarianism appeared briefly in scattered locations. A Unitarian community in Krakow, Poland flourished for a time, and a book called On the Errors of the Trinity by the Spaniard Michael Servetus was circulated throughout Europe. But persecution frequently followed these believers. The Polish Unitarians were completely suppressed, and Michael Servetus was, burned at the stake. Even where the harassment was not so extreme, people still opposed the idea of choice in matters of religious faith. In 1791, scientist and Unitarian minister Joseph Priestley had his laboratory burned down, and he was hounded out of England. He fled to America, where he established American Unitarian churches in Philadelphia, in that area. Despite these European connections, Unitarianism as we know it in North America is not of foreign import. In fact, the origins, as I have already said once before here, of our faith began with some of the most historic congregations in Puritan New England, where each town was required to establish a congregationally independent church that followed Calvinist doctrines. Initially, these congregational churches offered no religious choice for their parishioners, but over time, the strict doctrines of original sin and predestination begin to mellow. By the mid-1700s, a group of evangelicals were calling for the revival of Puritan orthodoxy. They asserted their belief in humanity's this belief in humanity's bondage to sin. People who opposed the revival, believing in free human will and the loving benevolence of God, eventually became Unitarian. During the first 4 decades of the 19th century, hundreds of these original congregational churches fought over ideas about sin and salvation, and especially over the doctrine of the Trinity. Most of the churches split over these issues. And then in 1819, Unitarian minister William Ellery Channing, whose statue you can see in the Boston Commons, delivered a sermon called Unitarian Christianity, and he helped to give the Unitarians a platform. 6 years later, the American Unitarian Association was organized in Boston. Now, that's Unitarian history. Universalism developed in America in at least 3 distinct geographical locations. The earliest preachers of the gospel of universal salvation appeared in what were later the Middle Atlantic and Southern states. So you probably know of some places around the South that are still Universalist. Camp Hill in Auburn, Alabama. By 1781, Elhanan Winchester had organized a Philadelphia congregation of Universal Baptists. And there are still Baptists this day that consider themselves Universalists. And they are considered heretics and not usually welcome in the Baptist associations. Among its members was Benjamin Rush, the famous physician and signer of the Declaration of Independence. At about the same time, in the rural interior sections of New England, a small number of itinerant preachers, among them Caleb Rich, began to disbelieve the strict Calvinist doctrines of eternal punishment. They discovered from their biblical studies the new revelation of God's loving redemption for all. And then we come to John Murray, an English preacher who immigrated in 1770 and helped lead the first Universalist church in Gloucester, Massachusetts, in the battle to separate church and state. I have a song about him too, but I'll save that for another day. It goes to the tune of My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, and it's John Murray sailed over the ocean. From its beginnings, Universalism challenged its members to reach out and embrace people whom society often marginalized. That's an important thing for us to remember today. It's part of our heritage. The Gloucester Church included a freed slave among its charter members, and the Universalists became the first denomination to ordain women into ministry, beginning in 1863 with Olympia Brown. Universalism was a more evangelical faith than Unitarianism. After officially organizing in 1793, the Universalists spread their faith across the eastern United States and Canada. Hosea Ballou became the denomination's greatest leader during the 19th century, and he and his followers, including Nathaniel Stacy, led the way in spreading their faith. Other preachers followed the advice of Universalist publisher Horace Greeley and went west. One such person was Thomas Starr King, for whom our theological school near Berkeley campus in San Francisco is named. He's credited with defining the difference between Unitarians and Universalists, something I'm sure you've heard. Universalists believe that God is too good to damn people, and the Unitarians believe that people are too good to be damned by God. Good job, y'all. The Universalists believed in a God who embraced everyone, and this eventually became central to their belief that lasting truth is found in all religions and that dignity and worth are innate to all people, regardless of sex, race, color, or class. We've added more groups of people that we know are marginalized. Growing out of this inclusive theology was a lasting impetus in both denominations to create a more just society. Both Unitarians and Universalists became active participants in many social justice movements in the 19th and 20th centuries. Unitarian preacher Theodore Parker, one of the Transcendentalists, was a prominent abolitionist, defending fugitive slaves and offering support to American abolitionist John Brown. Other reformers included Universalists such as Charles Spear, who called for prison reform, and Clara Barton, who went from Civil War angel of the battlefield to become the founder of the American Red Cross. Unitarians such as Dorothea Dix fought to break the chains of people incarcerated in mental hospitals, and Samuel Gridley Howe started schools for the blind. For the last 2 centuries, Unitarians and Universalists have been at the forefront of movements working to free people from whatever bonds may oppress them. Thousands of years ago, liberals were persecuted for seeking the freedom to make religious choice. But such freedom has become central to both Unitarianism and Universalism. As early as the 1830s, both groups were studying and promulgating texts from world religions other than Christianity. By the beginning of the 20th century, humanists within both traditions advocated that people could be religious without believing in God. No one person, no one religion can embrace all religious truths. By the middle of the 20th century, it became clear that Unitarians and Universalists could have a stronger liberal religious voice if they merged their efforts. And so they did in 1961. Yay! Forming the Unitarian Universalist Association. Many Unitarian Universalists became active in the civil rights movement, and we talked a little about that recently. James Reeb, a Unitarian Universalist minister, was murdered in Selma, Alabama, after he and 20% of the denomination's ministers responded to Martin Luther King Jr.'s call to march for justice. Today, we are determined to continue to work for greater racial cultural diversity, and we're even facing our own struggles in our own denomination. In 1977, a Woman and Religion resolution was passed by the association, and the denomination responded to the feminist challenge to change sexist structures and language, especially with the publication of an inclusive hymnal. The denomination has affirmed the rights of bisexual, gay, lesbian, and transgender persons, including through ordination and ministerial settlement in our congregations, and in 1996 affirmed same-sex marriage. All these efforts reflect a modern understanding of universal salvation. Unitarian Universalism welcomes all to an expanding circle of understanding and choice in religious faith. Our history has carried us from liberal Christian views about Jesus and human nature to a rich pluralism expressed in the form of a covenant of our principles and purposes and sources. Even though the date of the merger is 1961, the two denominations had found common ground through sharing resources in religious education or faith development much earlier. Our youth groups had combined long before the denominations did. And by the mid-1940s, most Universalist churches were using the American Unitarian Association's New Beacon series. The work of two people, Sophia Lyon-Fawes and Angus MacLean, strongly influenced the religious development of the generation who would come to adulthood in the new Unitarian Universalist Association. Actually, we came to grandparenthood at this point. But their philosophy was greatly influenced by John Dewey, and they brought that into the religious education in our congregations. MacLean is known for his understanding, philosophy, and now a common phrase, the method is the message. And that's what we teach our teachers in religious education, is that how you teach is way more important than what you teach. So our methods say much more than our words, meaning that children are taught, what they are taught is likely to be absorbed from how they are taught. Sophia Lyon-Fawes was 16 years MacLean's senior, and she summed up her optimistic and grand philosophy this way: we need to learn how to help children to think about ordinary things until insights and feelings are found which have a religious quality. So her groundbreaking book back then was Today's Children and Yesterday's Heritage, in which she wrote, beliefs should be the products of maturing emotional experiences, meditation, and critical thought, and not assumptions with which to begin. So Sophia Foz, on whose curriculum I was raised, explored themes such as the relevance of religion in the modern world, the integration of religion and science, and the universality of religious experience. All things we still struggle with and are important to us today. So those two people shared a lot, and they both came from different religious traditions, finding Universalism and Unitarianism as adults. Both were loved by their students and grounded in their creative work. Another expression of the need for communities to embody this faith is the sense that religion is caught, not taught. Again, the method is the message. And so when people come in to our congregations, what is it that they will catch from us? What will we be teaching by embodying our religious faith, our highest purposes and principles? And how can we live that out daily? And how do we live it out with one another and with people who walk through our doors? I think that's our goal, not an easy one. But another expression of the need for communities to embody this faith is needed in order for us to be a place where people are drawn in and our circle is widened. May that be so, and may we continue to strive to be that. So do we have the picture of the words for Blue Boat Home? Yay, we're on track. I invite you to rise, whether it be in body or in spirit, as we sing the closing hymn, Blue Boat Home. Absolutely beautiful. I love it when you sing out and make me feel so happy. As we leave this community of the Spirit, may we remember the difficult lesson that each day offers more things than we can do, May we do what needs to be done, postpone what does not, and be at peace with what we can be and do. Therefore, may we learn to separate that which matters most and that which matters least of all. Let us go in peace.